So my name is Grace Vickers. I'm the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Associate with U.S. Purg Education Fund. We're a national nonprofit that advances solutions to problems that impact our health and safety and well-being in our environment. We're here to talk about the International Plastic Pellet Count today. Um, but first, just wanted to thank everyone for being here, but also for participating in this event. Um, the volunteers that are going out, the event organizers and coordinators, are really like the heart of this whole project. And you guys are making a very direct impact on problems that impact your communities and your waterways that you care about. So we really appreciate all of you going out this week and this month to make a difference on plastic pellet pollution as it exists in your waterways. So thank you all. I also want to thank the co-sponsors and steering committee of the International Plastic Pellet Count, all of these lovely organizations that have poured time and energy into planning and recruiting and publicizing this event. So thank you all for the work you've put in. It's really appreciated and it's been awesome to see this grow year over year. So, I wanted to start by just talking a little bit more. Oh, also, if everyone could drop where they're doing a pellet count in the chat, it'd be cool to see where people are joining from or where they're planning to do a pellet count over the next couple of days or weeks. Um, we have events scheduled happening all over the world, people going out in a bunch of countries. So it'd be really cool to see where everyone is going to be. But I wanted to start by just going over what plastic pellets are and talking a little bit more about the problem that we're actually looking to address. So plastic pellets are pre-production microplastic. They're about the size and shape of a lentil. This is what you're going to be looking for the next couple of weeks. They're also the building block of the plastic manufacturing process. So they get melted down to be made into a lot of the plastic products we use in our daily lives. Everything from shopping bags to takeout containers to plastic packaging. And they're foundationally derived from fossil fuels, which means they're more extractive from our environment, but also that they can contain toxins and things, which I'll get into in a second. But unfortunately, plastic pellets are spilled and dumped at really high rates into our environment during the production and manufacturing process, transport. Plastic pellets are very cheap, very small, and very easy to lose. So they're easily spilled, easily lost by being swept off of production machines, or like falling off of transit, so falling off of trains or cars, which leads them to end up in our environment. And we'll talk about how plastic pellets exist in our waterways in a minute, but one of the big ways where one of the big ways plastic pellets end up in inland states that aren't near waterways or far away from waterways that are used for transport, is by freight trains. Every North American freight train company has spilled plastic pellets into the environment. This is a picture of a spill from a couple of years ago in the Midwest. But this is happening at pretty high rates. We've seen train derailments that lead to millions of pellets being dumped or spilled into environments and waterways. This also happens with semi-trucks. If semi-trucks get overturned, they're carrying millions of pellets. We see those enter our waterways and our environment as well. And so because they're entering our environment at such high rates and they're coming from a lot of different sources, they're really pervasive in our environment. We see that a lot along our coastlines because they're pervasive in our oceans, but also in our inland waterways that plastic production facilities use to transport pellets, or kind of near the hubs of manufacturing. And this is Nurdle Patrol's website. We'll get a tutorial on Nurdle Patrol later in the webinar. But this is the system we use to report our data for the International Plastic Pellet Count. So a lot of the dots on this map come from people like you going out and doing the citizen science it takes to get data on this issue. And so from all these sources, we know that about 10 trillion plastic pellets end up in our oceans every single year, which is kind of an astounding number to think of. But we also don't entirely know where those pellets are coming from or where they're ending up, which is why doing pellet counts is so important. And once they're there, plastic pellets are really hard to clean up. I mean, if you've ever done a pellet count before, you'll know they're really tiny, really hard to like pick up individually. And unless you're like seeing them or picking them up in huge, huge quantities, which does happen sometimes, you can't really like shovel them into something and count them. So a lot of times you're just picking up one by one, which makes coordinated cleanup efforts for these spills a lot less effective and a lot less frequent. And of course, once they're in our environment, they cause harm to our wildlife. We know this is particularly relevant for our aquatic species like fish and aquatic birds, who can mistake plastic pellets for organic material like fish eggs and then consume them, which leads to toxicity issues, but also can lead to starvation. If a fish has eaten a bunch of plastic pellets, they'll stop receiving hunger cues, and they can starve to death with their stomachs full of plastic, which is the same, can also occur in seabirds that are, you know, just looking to eat and are mistaking these pellets for organic material. And you can see pretty easily why they'd make that mistake. On the left is pellets, and on the right is our fish eggs or some sort of, yeah. Um, and you can see like pretty easily why that mistake happens. If you're just like looking for food or it's murkier water, you can definitely see how this can happen and cause devastation for our wildlife. Plastic pellets also attract toxic chemicals. Chemicals or plastics in general during the production process have a lot of additives to give them different qualities, like water resistance or flame retardants. Um, and so these chemicals that are added are too often ending up in our environment and leaching into the plastic that is then being introduced to our waterways. But they can also absorb toxics that are already in our waterways from other sources and then be eaten or degrade into further microplastics. And so this is all of these reasons, this big scary problem is why we do plastic pellet counts. Plastic pellet counts are the like first best way we have to quantify and address plastic pellet pollution as it exists in communities all over the world. Without the data from plastic pellet counts, we actually just don't have enough information to make a case for lasting change, and hold producers accountable. So this is a really important effort, and we really appreciate all the time and effort you've put into organizing pellet counts for the International Plastic Pellet Count, which Chelsea from Waterkeeper Alliance is going to talk about now.
Yeah, thank you, Grace. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chelsea. I'm the Clean Water Defense Campaign Manager for Waterkeeper Alliance. And we're really excited about this effort. And so last year was our first ever pellet count, and in which almost 50,000 plastic pellets were counted at over 200 different sites in 14 countries and 29 states. This year, we're hoping to continue to increase our numbers, aiming to have almost 500 pellet counts with double of last year. And based on registration, we're really hopeful we're going to meet that goal. And we're really thankful for all of you and your contributions to achieving that. As Grace said, because there's so little regulation and monitoring of pellet pollution, the citizen science is really what makes the difference in being able to then meet with members of Congress or bring litigation or a whole series of different things that will hopefully create lasting change. And to share a little bit more about why they participated in last year's count and the impacts plastic has on their watershed, we're going to go to the next slide and play a video from the Port Phillip Bay Keeper in Australia, who had one of the largest collection of pellets. Australia, unfortunately, after the United States, had the dubious honor of the most collected pellets at 5,000 last year. And so they wanted to join, but due to time differences, sent us this video for us to watch. I'm not getting any sound, Grace.
It was working earlier. It might be because I muted.
Yeah,
Ahoy there.
there,
I'm
now we have sound.
Port Phillip Baykeeper in St Kilda, Melbourne, Australia. Plastic pollution has been really a hot topic for me. I've been watching that along the foreshore here for the last 40 years. Back in the 80s, plastic wasn't such a big deal, although there was lots of it being washed up on a daily basis. coming from the city catchments, streets that are feeding into the bay. But the litter data in those days, we talked about what the item was, its purpose was, rather than what it was made from. It occurred to me, though, some years later, that practically 90% of what we were collecting was actually plastic. So there was all kinds of plastic pollution, particularly single-use items related to confectionery wraps or takeaway foods, drink bottles, all of that sort of stuff that is coming dropped on the streets in the catchments around the bay on a daily basis and is being washed into the bay. Because the bay is such a enclosed environment, much of that plastic gets trapped or treated, kept in the bay, almost it's like a stump. So there's a concern, particularly with the fragments of smaller pieces of plastics, the microplastics, that end up getting washed up on the shoreline, that they are being washed up onto beaches and actually trapped and buried within the sand. So we've got this reservoir of plastic that is basically out of sight and out of mind that may turn up in the future and be washed back into the system as sea levels rise. So we've got a concern with plastic in general. We need to stop allowing it to get into the bay in the first place, but also manage it once it has got into the bay. And citizen science is one big way to do that, so that we actually can provide evidence to advocate for changes in the way that we treat plastic.
Perfect. Thank you, Grace. And then now we'll move to our next video, which is a training video on how to find plastic pollution. This webinar will be available online afterwards, but you can also find this video online at Nurdle Patrol. So it's available to you throughout the month of May with doing counts, or if you invite your friends or if people want to know how to do it. And so we will start it now, but as the video plays, feel free to put questions into the chat you'd like us to answer afterwards for our Q&A section. Thank you, Grace.
Jace Tunnel here. Today we're doing Nurdle Patrol Training 101. We're looking for these little tiny plastic pellets that are washing in that are the basis of everything plastic. So the purpose of today is to show you where to look for a nurdle. And today we're on the ocean, but you can also do this if you're on a river or a lake. So the first thing you want to do, there's two different areas you want to look for. One is the new strand line. That's where the water's been in the last 24 hours. And then the second one you can do is anything above the new strand line is considered the old strand line. And this tells us a couple of different things. One is if it's a new strand line, it tells us a new event coming in. So if the concentrations you find are high enough, we might want to call the Coast Guard or something like that. So there can be a cleanup. But basically you go along here and you look in the high tide line, like I'm seeing them here, and I'm just randomly pulled up here. So you just kind of look around. This is where the sticks and leaves are. That's where you're going to be looking. And so I've got a few nurdles in my hand here already. And so I start my clock for 10 minutes and I start walking along here and see how many I can find. Now, if you find 0, that's data too. So you go to nurdlepatrol.org and you put 0 for the number that you found. We have a reporting form on there where you can go and you can put in how many nurdles you found, where you were at, and the date, and how many people you were with, and how many minutes you looked. Now you can submit data either on your phone or on your computer into nurdlepatrol.org. Then all that information is being downloaded and used by organizations to be able to help change policy to prevent these pellets from getting out into the environment. So let's say we did this. Say we found 0. So we found 0 in 10 minutes. We put 0 in. Now we'll go up to the old strand line, which is any line above that. So if you're on a river, you're going to be looking at where the current water level is. That's going to be your new strand line. Anything above that where like there was a flood and there's sticks and leaves and you find some nurdles up there, that'll be your old strand line. Same with the lake. Um, so now remember, these things float. So, or not all nurdles float, but the ones we're finding currently float. And like polypropylene and polyethylene, those are the two common ones that we find washed up because the density, they float. Okay, so now we're at the old strand line. So we're going to do a similar type thing. You look for where there's bits of plastic. And so I'm finding one here already. Got a nurdle there. Got another one here. So that's two, just real quick. And the reason I was able to, and I chose this area is because there's little bits of plastic that I can already see around here. And that's normally where you would find nurdles. Here's two more right here. So that's four I've gotten in what, 20 seconds. Okay, so the reason we're doing all this is to hopefully change policy at the state level. So if you're in a state, you want to know if you have nurdles found in your area, just go on to nurdlepatrol.org and look at the map. You can zoom into your house or your favorite beach. If there's no data there, go out and do a 10-minute survey. You can populate that area. There's a couple of improvements we made to the website. One is you can go and if you're on the map page, you can put a polygon around or you can search a certain area, a state, a city, something like that, and you can download all the data. You can also print up your own map. So that's really important if you're trying to go to your political leader, or you're trying to go to your state agency that regulates these companies, and you want to show them that, hey, we got a problem here. You can print up your own map. You can actually print up all the data you need and take it to them to show them. So just trying to develop tools to help you be able to show that the change needs to be made. But it's very important for us to be able to show there's a problem so that we can actually make a difference. Because if nobody knows there's a problem, there's no reason to try to make a difference, right? So that's kind of our goal. Okay, if you want more information, nurdlepatrol.org is a good place.
You,
Facebook,
Grace.
also have a Nurdle Patrol Facebook page with like.
Perfect. So we'll stop there for Q&A. I'm seeing one question so far come in through the chat. Starting us about resources, which one great place to start your look for everything, resources and all sorts of different things is if you go to pelletcount.org. It'll take you to a page with all of the training videos, as well as toolkits and resources and information. And one question that I see is if the Zoom background will be included in that, which I defer to Grace.
Um, it is not currently on pelletcount.org, but we could add it to pelletcount.org if people want it as a resource.
Perfect. Now, Jace, I see that you've joined us as a panelist, so I'll let you take the next question, which is, so does each 10-minute count of nurdles count as data capture?
Okay, so repeat the question real quick. Sorry.
No, you're good. So does each 10 minutes of a count as the data capture?
Yeah, actually, if somebody goes out, they could go out for an entire hour and they could put that they were at search for 60 minutes. And the database automatically standardizes all the information that goes into it, and so it will split it out. There'll be a total amount of nurdles found in that hour, but then there'll be a standardized number that splits it out into 10-minute increments. And so the dot that you see on the map is actually for 10 minutes for one person. So if somebody goes out in a whole group, say they have 50 people and they go out for an hour, they can put that they can just have one entry of 50 people for 1 hour, and then there'll be a standardized number that the dot will show up. So we try to make it real simple, but we also want to make it to where the data is justifiable to researchers and in litigation. And so that's why we have that standardized number.
Perfect. And then another question came in on that 10-minute search, which is how much square footage should be covered within the 10 minutes?
It's not by length, it's by time. And so we recognize that there's things that you can do with the data and things that you can't. So if you go out and you do a survey for 10 minutes, you're not going to be able to say how many nurdles there were per mile. but you can say how many nurdles there were per effort. And so that's how we utilize the data.
Perfect. And then we got a clarifying question. Is it better to do 6 10-minute counts versus one 60-minute count? Or will the website convert either way?
Yeah, the website will convert it either way. I'd say, do it as long as you want to. Just make sure you put however many nurdles and how much time you um, did the survey for, and the database will do the rest. Now, if you go to different locations, do a 10-minute. So say you're going to go a mile down the river, do a different location. That would be a different entry.
Perfect. And then we have a question on how to find those places to look. Would a creek do or a reservoir, or does it have to be a lake or river?
It could be a creek, a river, anywhere that there. And actually, we've done a lot of surveys right outside the fence line of plastic companies where their stormwater would run out. And so, yeah, it can be anywhere that you think there might be plastic or plastic pellets. And a good way to be able to recognize that, I kind of mentioned it in the video, but if you go up and you see a debris line that has little specks of plastic all in there, like just other broken down plastic products, that's usually a good spot to look for nurdles. Usually you dig through that and you'll find some nurdles in there.
I think just one thing to emphasize is safety first. So, as you saw in Grace's presentation, railways are often a place to go find them, but railways are often not a safe place to go find them. So always make sure that you're taking care of yourself in, in your search for pellets. And then we have another question on the importance of finding nurdles and not finding nurdles, which feels fairly philosophical. I'll take the practical way first, but other panelists feel free to jump in which I know some folks feel like they shouldn't log data if they don't find anything because they felt like they didn't do anything. However, it's very important and very helpful for you to still log where your location was and that you found 0 pellets, both so that we can include you in our numbers, so we can show members of Congress and different folks how many people are worried about this issue and participating. And it's still data to know that there weren't pellets in that location at a certain point in time. So please still do log those zeros, which I think is what that question is asking, but please put something more in the chat if it is not. And otherwise, I think that covers all of our questions. We'll give folks a minute to keep typing. But really just want to emphasize how valuable your participation is. This weekend is obviously the main big kickoff, but if you get the bug for hunting for pellets, continue throughout the month of May because all of the data logged in a Nurdle Patrol for the month of May will be included. And we do have one more question. What supplies do you need?
Grace,
Go
were you
for
going to
it.
get that one?
Go for it, Jace.
Oh, okay. The good thing is that you really don't need anything. I like to take like an old jar to be able to put the nurdles in, but really you could just stick them in your hand. If you do find some, you probably want to have something to put them in. I found bottle caps where I'm looking, and I just fill the bottle cap up with them. So really, you don't need any supplies except for your fingers because it's by hand only. That's how we're able to compare one site to another is that we don't use sieves or shovels or buckets or nets or anything like that. We just use our hand only. And that's very important. But yeah, we keep it simple.
Perfect. And then one more question about where the data should go. And on the slide, you'll see the words Nerdle Patrol, and that's the website that you need to go to log that data. So it's please add everything there, and you'll be automatically included in the count. And also, if you are Grace, I think you were about to jump in and do what I was about to.
I was going to say, we will follow up if you're registered to participate in the International Plastic Pellet Count through one of the co-sponsors of the event. We will be in touch to with a link of like where to log your data later today, as well as a recording of this webinar, and some more resources about how to find places, and a toolkit for the International Plastic Pellet Count. So I will follow up with some more resources later today, including a link of where to report if you're registered. But if you're not registered, you should register.
And I'll say if anybody has any issues when they're entering data for some reason, um, my email is on the website, and so I will troubleshoot with the person, um, if there are any issues.
And yeah, and day of, feel free to, if you're registered through Environment America or PERG, you got an email from me, and feel free to reach out to me with any questions that come up day of, including reporting issues. So via email or phone number. And yeah, happy to be a resource. And thank you guys so much for everything you're doing to contribute to this event. We're excited to see how many, well, excited and a little scared to see how many pellets we find this year. And hoping to see a lot of pictures and stuff from events this year. So thank you all for being here. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Please send us your photos.
Yes.